Well, the pay-per-view couldn't have ended on a worse note.
It's time to take a journey through Sig Daddy's mind on Sig Daddy's Wrestling Show. Here's Sig Daddy.
Yowie wowie. I have a doozy for you on this episode of Sig Daddy's Wrestling Show. It is my Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. Just finished watching it here just a little bit ago, and wow, am I disappointed. Just incredibly disappointed and frustrated. I'll let you know why here in a few moments, but coming up later this week, something happened here this last Friday night on SmackDown where Brock Lesnar wins the WWE title in literally 10 seconds. I'm going to let you know how I would have booked the Brock Lesnar Cain Velasquez angle at the end of SmackDown on Fox last Friday. I'm going to let you know how I would actually book it. But that's coming up later this week on all my podcasting platforms, Spotify, Podbean, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. But let's get to the meat and potatoes of this. It's the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view from 2019, this year's Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. And let's just get this started with this. Up until a couple of hours before the pay-per-view, WWE only had 4 matches scheduled. They literally put 5 matches on within 3 hours of the start of the pay-per-view start time. You gotta be kidding me. That is absolutely unacceptable, but let's get to the matches. First off, on the kickoff, we had Natalya versus Lacey Evans for the absolute 1,000th time, and still, nobody cares about it. Ending of the match goes like this. Evans goes up for her double jump moonsault, misses Natalya. She puts in the sharpshooter. Natalya gets the win by a tap out. Grade C-. It was there. It's unnecessary. We've seen it 3,000 times already. And guess what we find out later? They're going to settle their epic feud in a last woman standing match. Can we not find anything better for these two to do? I don't know. This is just ridiculous. But let's get to the main show. It starts out super duper hot. It's the hottest start you could have to a pay-per-view. And that's about as hot as it'll get in this pay-per-view. But it's the Raw Women's Championship match inside Hell in a Cell. Very personal feud between Becky Lynch and Sasha Banks. Before the match even starts, Sasha attacks. Before the cell's even lowered, she throws Becky at the cell, suplexes her on the ramp. And then eventually Becky kicks the door at Sasha, beats her down inside the cell. And then we finally get the bell to ring. Some other highlights during this match. There was a lot of brawling outside the ring at the beginning and throughout the match, really. I enjoyed that. There was a lot of weapon involvement. The cell was involved quite a bit. Some really innovative spots during this match. Becky Lynch at one time got meteored into a ladder that was set up against the cell. It was pretty impressive. Also during that match, there was kendo sticks being used. They wedged him between the parts of the cell and set up a chair in them. Set up a chair, like literally sitting it up. And Becky put Sasha in it. And at one time, Becky went and hit a drop kick as Sasha was in the chair and freaking put her into the cell. It was pretty freaking awesome. There was also a spot where Becky was literally sitting in a chair and she got meteored. And then there was the close of the match. Becky gets meteored through the table. Then a bank statement with a kendo stick by Sasha. Becky thrown into a chair set up on the outside. Well, not set up on the outside, set up on the side of the cage. And then Becky would go after the arm. No, never mind. That was a different note I have. But Banks, she grabs all the chairs outside the ring. That chair thing I was talking about just a moment ago, it was Becky. There was a chair literally lodged into the cell, and Becky was trying to throw Sasha in it, and then Sasha threw her into it. And then eventually Sasha gets Becky back in the ring, just launches all the chairs possible inside of the ring. And she goes up for another Meteora, and then Becky hits a back exploder from the middle rope onto all the chairs, and then she puts in the disarmor. Sasha tries to grab the hair. It doesn't work out. Sasha ends up tapping out. I'm going to give that match an A-. It was a really good opener with some great and innovative spots. They both worked super hard, and it was pretty brutal, and it's the better of the two Hell in a Cell female matches that I've seen so far. Only little nitpick things I have from this match was the arm work that Sasha did on Becky early in the match. It was completely ignored later on, and I thought this would be the time to put the title on Sasha. But those are just some minor complaints. Just kind of where does Sasha go now? Minor complaints on that kind of thing. But it was a really good match and a really good opener, and it was a very good Hell in a Cell match. A- grade. Up next was the Tornado Tag match between Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns versus Eric Rowan and Luke Harper. Nice to see Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan working together. It was a pretty solid match. Eric Rowan and Luke Harper, they're just world beaters. They can just absolutely destroy people, and their offense is very, very heavy-handed. But some highlights. Bryan, he got sent face first into an exposed LED screen. Most of this match was dominated by Harper and Rowan. But later on in the match, Bryan would hit a Hurricane Rana off Harper. The announce tables were all exposed, and Harper was getting ready to put Bryan through him, but Bryan hit a Hurricane Rana on him, and then Reigns comes up and spears Rowan through the announce table. And then Bryan hits the running drop kicks in the corner on Harper, then goes for a Hurricane Rana off the middle rope, but Harper power bombs him. And then Harper goes for 2 dragon suplexes. Bryan flips out of the third one. Reigns hits the Superman punch. Bryan hits the running knee. Reigns hits the spear. And we're going home with the 1, 2, 3. Chaotic match. Fun match, though. Very fun closing sequence. But after the match, Bryan tried to shake his hand. And then he said, nah, I'm going for the hug. And then Bryan and Roman Reigns hug after the match. It's going to be interesting to see if they go back to this duo. It'd actually be a fun tag team with Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns, kind of opposites, tag team. I'm going to give this match a B. It was a fun match, chaotic match. I like the tornado tag setup. It was much better suited for these guys. And then up next was one of the matches with hardly any build, was Randy Orton versus Ali. Crowd didn't really care all that much about it. Orton's was the pace was kind of slow, like a typical Orton match. Late in the match, Ali hits a face buster. Then Orton hits his power slam, spinning heel kick by Ali. 450 misses. He tried to go for it twice, actually. And Orton hits a draping DDT. And then Ali, he counters the RKO that was an awesome counter with a front handstand, and then rolls up Orton. Then Ali goes back for that rolling facebuster as he dives through the ropes. He goes right into an RKO. I'm going to give it a C+. The crowd really could have cared less about for most of this match until late. I felt like this was much better suited for SmackDown than a pay-per-view, actually. And it was just no build, really, and this was just kind of thrown together like most of these matches on this pay-per-view. Incredibly slowed pace until late. And really, what does a loss do for Ali in this match? I don't know. And then, following that was the Kabuki Warriors versus Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships. The Kabuki Warriors were portrayed as the heels in this match, kind of all out of the blue, had no clue, no build or anything to it. I would have had a little bit of a better tease about it beforehand, but they had no indicators a couple weeks ago from SmackDown when they faced Fire and Desire, Mandy Rose, and Sonya Deville. They didn't indicate they were going to be heel at all. And they just started doing some heelish stuff out of the blue in this match. And I was like, okay. But the end of the match was Alabama slam by Kairi Sane. Cross, she blocks the insane elbow and hits a swinging neck breaker. Then Asuka goes in and breaks it up. Then Bliss goes in for the rolling senton on Kairi Sane. And then as the ref was distracted, Asuka brings out the old Tajiri green mist on Cross. She hits the roundhouse to Cross. They get the 3 count, and we have new women's tag team champions. And I'm happy to see them win the titles. It's a little overdue, I think, but I'm going to give it a B-. I wish they would have at least gave me some kind of hinting on the heel turn, because it just kind of came out of the blue. But they were just faces, like I said, they were faces just 2 weeks ago. But not a bad match, though. I thought a couple of minutes could have been shaven off. It took a little too long, but I like the finish, though. I'm going to give it a B-. And that Orton match previously, I gave it a C+. And then following that was the 6-man tag match where the OC, Styles, Gallows, and Anderson took on the Viking Raiders with a mystery partner, which ended up being Braun Strowman. Eric took a lot of the offense in this match against the OC. Eventually, Strowman gets tagged and takes out Styles, does his lap of shoulder blocks. He runs into Styles, Styles takes out his leg, actually. Styles gets the calf crusher on him. Then Eric breaks it up with a knee. And then everybody's just it's chaos. Everybody hitting their offense on each other. Then Strowman finally goes for the power slam on AJ Styles, but then Carl Anderson comes in and takes his knees out. And then just a beat down by the OC, and then the bell rings. Strowman Raiders win by DQ. But then the Viking Raiders then take out Gallows and Anderson on the outside, and then Styles goes for his forearm, and then Strowman, he hits a knockout punch, trying to build off of his interaction with Tyson Fury on SmackDown back on Friday. I'm going to give this a C-. This match could have been done on Raw. It could have been easily done on Raw. The finish was dumb. And really all this set up was a confrontation between Tyson Fury and Braun Strowman, which I could honestly care less about. I'm just not a big fan of all these outsiders coming into the company, combat sports guys coming in. It's just, there's way too much talent on the roster right now to be doing that. And other people could be used in that spot that actually earned that spot, instead of having some guy like Tyson Fury, who's a boxer, come in and do this thing. It's just and for probably a one-off thing. It's just my opinion on it. I just don't really care for it at all. Eventually, we actually find out we get a new 24/7 champion backstage in Tamina, and then we have Chad Gable and Baron Corbin. And speaking of, before I get to Chad Gable and Baron Corbin, I'm going to go back to the Strowman match. We've already seen this combination of OC and Viking Raiders multiple times. Why do we need to see it again? It's not necessary. We've seen this match. We've seen this combination of people multiple times already. It's kind of stale, and it's kind of lazy, in my opinion. And then Chad Gable versus Baron Corbin. The first match that's actually really had build to it in over half the card almost. Well, the last 3 matches or so. But it starts out, Corbin cuts a promo about these short jokes. I'm over it at this point. I don't really care about the short jokes anymore. They've kind of overstayed their welcome, and it's way past their shelf life, in my opinion, on those short jokes. They have a good match, solid match, nothing like special. It was nothing compared to their King of the Ring final back on Raw just a few weeks ago. But the finish, swinging neck breaker by Gable, was immediately followed by a moonsault that got a really close 2 count. Then Gable just goes in and locks in the ankle lock. Corbin then crawls out of the ring to break it up. And then Corbin choke slams Gable on the apron. And Corbin grabs his scepter that was used on Raw to get him to the DQ. And then the ref takes it away, and then Gable gets the win. And before the match, Corbin decreed that Gable get called Shorty Gable from now on. And then the announcer, Greg Hamilton, called Gable Shorty Gable when he won the match. Then after that, nope, never mind. That grade for that is a B-. Not the best match of their series. Not as good as their King of the Ring final match. But I'm happy it got Gable his win finally. But the crowd didn't get into it till the later stages. And really, these two haven't had a bad match so far. Corbin having some of his better matches of his career just against Gable. Then the next match, the third match that actually really had the most build to it and is actually on the card before, actually not on the card before, but it was placed on the card just on Friday night, actually. One of the 4 matches that have actually had build up to it. It is Bayley and Charlotte Flair fighting for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Bayley defending her title. Lots of knee work in this match. I liked it. I actually stayed on it and focused on it, and eventually, this is the last portion of it. Charlotte Flair going for the moonsault. The Bayley then catches her with her knees. Outside of the ring, fall away slam by Charlotte. And then Charlotte goes for the figure 4. And then Bayley rolls her up. And then Bayley tries to go for a roll up, kind of as Charlotte was going for her boot. It catches on the top of the ring, top of the ropes. And then Bayley tries to go for a roll up. It was kind of messed up there. And then Bayley rolls her up, puts her feet on the ropes. The referee almost counts to 3, but catches her right beforehand. And then it leads to a figure 8 where Bayley taps, and now we have a 10-time women's champion, Charlotte Flair. And it kind of ended the same way for Sasha. They were both crying at the end of the night. Bayley was throwing a fit after the match, and both of them ended up crying. It's going to be interesting to see where those two go after this, especially as these matches had kind of definitive conclusions. But I'm going to give it a B. It's not their best match together, but it's obviously not their worst. Probably their worst was last month at Clash of Champions, but as I said, it puts Bayley and Sasha in a really interesting spot with both of them titleless and then tears following their losses in these matches. And I enjoyed the knee work between Bayley and Charlotte. And it's a B grade for me. Gable's getting interviewed backstage, talking about getting his win or whatever and such. And then Corbin beats him down, which means this feud will continue. And that leads us to our main event match of the night. The match I was actually looking forward to most, which was the Fiend Bray Wyatt versus Seth Rollins for the Universal Championship. And I was excited because the build for this match had been great. It showed that the Fiend was a step ahead of Rollins at all times, playing mind games with him. And then Bray Wyatt comes out with his great entrance. And the match, the first thing I noticed in this match, the red lighting, it doesn't work. It messes with your eyes. It's only cool for about 2 seconds, and then you can't really see all that well, and it's kind of just hurts your eyes to even look at it. And then, but here's some highlights from this match. Actually, I'm just going to give you a rundown of what happened. It's pretty much Wyatt dominating early, and then Rollins